Hey all, welcome to today's video. In today's video, I'll be doing part 1 of a 2-part suggested series suggested to me by Lynx and Terry, looking at each party's path to victory. I've done videos similar to this in the past, but I'm doing something a bit different from how I typically do it. I'm looking at like the states that they should be winning, or the easiest path to victory with like the the smallest range of appeal, because obviously, yes, the GOP would probably be more likely to win if they were to run a candidate with really good white rural appeal and really good suburban appeal and like just obviously appeal all across the board. But that candidate's really hard to find. I mean, like Glenn Youngkin kind of fits that, but that candidate, generally speaking, would be really hard to find. Whereas it's easier to find a candidate that's stronger for just one of those demographics. Um, so yeah. So starting off, Texas. I think it's highly unlikely that Texas flips in 2024, sort of regardless of who the GOP runs. Like, obviously, if they run like someone like really, really, really bad, then it could flip, but I think it's probably gonna stay. I think regardless of if they run like Donald Trump or Mitt Romney or Nikki Haley or like Ron DeSantis, it'll probably stay like red. Um, After that, Iowa and Ohio. A lot of these states for the GOP, I think they'll probably win it either way, but they would want to be strong with white rural voters and strong with the white working class, which I think they should be running more Trumpist candidates. Trumpist populists and Trumpist populists tend to do very well with white rural voters and do very well with the white working class. Um, Next state, Florida. It's gonna go to the GOP almost certainly either way. I don't think that they. I think it's like titanium lean at this point. I think there's obviously definitely a possibility for it to flip. But also like I think Florida is fairly flexible in terms of like the Republican candidates that like win in Florida, because obviously you see you see people like I don't Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis are kind of weird because they're like sort of Trumpist populists, also sort of establishmentarian. They're kind of strange candidates, but Marco Rubio, who's more establishmentarian, won. We saw Trump, who is more populist, win. We saw DeSantis and Scott, who've already discussed, win. And I think it's more flexible in terms of like the Republicans that it elects than like say Arizona or Wisconsin or something. Next up, North Carolina. The GOP will probably do very well with white rural voters if they nominate a Trumpist populist. And I think that's probably the GOP's best path in North Carolina, or the easiest path at least. For them to win in North Carolina, maybe not the best, probably the easiest. To win in North Carolina is do very well with white rural voters, and then do very well with the white working class. And then finally, the Rust Belt. I think that Michigan is the toughest of these, but I think that Michigan is more likely than Arizona. More likely than maybe Georgia, and we can discuss Georgia. I'd probably down to Michigan or Georgia. Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, if they do very well with white rural voters and do very well with the white working class, I think they probably do well enough. It really depends on who the Democratic Party runs. And if the Democrats run a really, really strong candidate, I don't know how far the GOP will get. I think Wisconsin probably does flip, maybe Pennsylvania, maybe. Um, but if the Democratic Party just nominates like a really strong candidate, then I think that um the GOP probably does still lose. Michigan, it's farther to the left than both Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, I would say, at least in terms of where it votes. So Georgia, maybe. I think that it's really weird. I think that Georgia might be. It's probably a worse. It's probably worse for the GOP, but it's really hard to tell. I think that the GOP would probably struggle. I think like a Trumpist populist probably struggle more. In Georgia's diversifying suburbs. And to do well with white rural voters than they would in Michigan with the white working class and white rural voters. And with suburbanites, I think that would hurt them more. I mean, like, yeah, I think that they would do better in Michigan suburbs than in Georgia suburbs. Um, Even though both are like diversifying, I think that the GOP would still do better in these suburbs, in Georgia or in Michigan, and they would also do better with the white. They would also do pretty well with the white working class. And I don't know if I mean like, well, yeah, it's really hard to tell with these two. Georgia was more competitive, but I think in 2024, even if Georgia's more narrow, I think Georgia will be harder for the GOP to win than Michigan. It's super weird, like, because Georgia in 2024 will probably be a more narrow margin of victory. But if I had to like bet on the GOP, like whether or not, if I had to say either they will win Georgia or they will win Michigan, I would probably say Michigan. It's super weird, because I think Georgia will be more narrow, but I think Michigan has a higher chance at flipping. I don't know if that's like something that people like actually think, or if I'm just like crazy. I mean, like, I am not necessarily like the most normal person. I think we know this. I think we probably know this about me at this point. But I think that it is a weird take that I have. Or I would imagine it's weird, but I think that Michigan I would probably put instead of Georgia, although at this point they are somewhat interchangeable. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like below. Stay tuned for my next video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please comment your suggestions down below, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye.